Hi everyone, Leanne here from Jaded Blossom, and it's time for day one of their August 2025 release. Hey, so I'm using Jaded Blossom's new Gnome Dies Farm add-ons, their new Hey Friend stamp set and matching outline dies, their new windmill die, their mushroom dies, their border dies, Jaded Blossom's card mat dies, their barn dies, their tree stump die, their mushroom house die. I'm using, oh, that's a mistake. Ignore that. Sorry, guys. I meant to take that out. I'm using Doodlebug's odds and ends from down on the farm and the 6-inch pad as well. And I'm using the Rainbow Petite Prints in Swiss Dot, Candy Stripe and Sprinkles, and Floral Graph. And I'm using this School Days 12-inch paper line as well. So first I'm going to assemble the barn out of Papertrink Craft cardstock, and then the red dot is that School Days 12-inch paper from Doodlebug. And all my die cutting today was done with my Anna Griffin Empress machine, working on a Stampin' Up! Pad, using Bearly Art glue, all the things. So I'm just going to quickly assemble this little barn. And I'm using Papertrink white cardstock, craft cardstock. That's the white. And reverse tweezers, for the win. I do weight things down in between. I'm going to assemble the 2 barn doors here with some Bearly Art glue and my reverse tweezers, like I always say. Oops. There. Kind of keep your hands out of things, which is a good thing sometimes, right? And I'm going to put together this other one. Now, if I use something that's fully assembled, you can certainly check out the assembly on the assembly video for that die set. So, just FYI if you're new here. So I am just going to add the hay to the hayloft there. That is American Crafts yellow cardstock. And I'm going to add on my barn doors. You see that I do weight things down. I just find it helps keeping things nice and flat. So I'm just going to add on that last barn door. And isn't that a cute little barn? The door's open too if you want. Okay, so this is Candy Stripe and Sprinkles in the 12-inch. And I cut that out using Jaded Blossom's card mat dies. And I've got a Papertrink white card base, 4.25 by 11, scored at 5.5 inches. So for a vertical A2 sized. And this Candy Stripe and Sprinkles is in pistachio. So this is going to be my, my sky. So I'm going to add that to my card front using some ATG tape and, glue and all the things. Try to get things as straight as I can. On the inside, I'm going to add a 1-inch strip of farm paper from that Down on the Farm 6-inch pad from Doodlebug. I kind of usually put it about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom or a little less. I use the lines on my Stampin' Up! Pad to kind of get things straight. I do trim off that overhang with a pair of scissors. Now I have some odds and ends. These are from Down on the Farm. I try to match what I have going on the outside of my card on the inside. So I'm going to use a cloud. Actually, I also use Jaded Blossom's rainbow dies on this card, but I forgot to show you them because, I love the clouds from that set. Okay, so now I'm going to add in my little windmill as well. And I do trim off that overhang with a pair of scissors. So now my inside has that windmill, and then the outside will have a windmill as well. So now I am taking, this is some Swiss Dot paper that I cut with the card mat die, and then I cut again with the mushroom dies for that grassy hill. And then I also used Jaded Blossom's border dies for that bottom sort of hill. And what I do is I go ahead and I cut it first out of using Jaded Blossom's blah, blah, blah card mat die. And then I use the border dies on top of that so you can line up the stitching around the sky. That's what I always do. So I inked around the grass with some Mowed Lawn Distress ink. Now I'm going to be gluing down my clouds. That's from the rainbow dies from Jada Blossom. I'm gluing down 2 of them with Bearly Art glue. This is Papertrey Ink white cardstock. There we go. And I will trim off that overhang with a pair of scissors after I weight it down, as you saw. I like it to have, I like it to dry nice and flat. So now I'm going to glue on my little grassy hills. So yeah, the nice thing about cutting it out first with the card mat die is that you have the stitching running continuously around the card. And if you're crazy like me, what can I say? Okay, so now this piece is from the center of that paper, and because it's going to be hidden behind that hill that's going to be in the front, I figured, I might as well get 3 cuts out of it, right? So now I'm going to stick down my windmill with some Bearly Art glue. And these items are all going to be kind of overlapped, right? There is an assembly video for this windmill, so check that out. So I'm adding on my windmill. And I do weight it down with an acrylic block. Oops, there we are. And everything that I used for that windmill will be listed in my blog post. Now next, I'm going to add on this last little hill. I'm just adding a little bit of white paper behind it, just so it's, got a little bit more bulk and it won't bend. And I'm just trimming off the paper so it doesn't show, and I added a little bit more Mowed Long Distress ink. And there we are. I'm just going to glue that down over top of that windmill, kind of hiding the base of it a bit. There. So I think this has got a cute look. And I'm going to be adding on, this little tractor is from Jada Blossom's brand new Gnome Dies Farm add-ons. And I just think it is super cute. I'm going to be using some Stampin' Up! Dimensionals to pop this little tractor up. I'm going to be using it like it's a real tractor in my background. That's what I've got going on. So I'm going to peel off the backings to those dimensionals. And I'm going to be adding it, oops, sorry guys, adding it to my scene. So it's going to be on that hill. And then I'm going to figure out where my little barn will go. There. And once I figure that out, I will trim off that overhang once I get it in place. So I'm just going to use some ATG tape so I can, get this, covered really liberally. And it's going to stay in place. I'm going to have those little doors firmly shut. And I'm just going to kind of hang it off the edge of my card design. There we are. And I'm going to trim off that overhang with a pair of scissors. So this makes for a really cute scene, I think. There we are. And I'm pulling out shape sprinkles. These are called Hen and Chicks, and I'm just going to add a chick to my little hayloft. And I've got these little dots. These are from the ICU shape sprinkles from Doodlebug. And I'm just going to add on 2 little doorknobs to my farmhouse, although I guess they don't necessarily have doorknobs, but I think it looked cute. And now I'm going to ink around. These are from Jada Blossom's Mushroom House die and Tree Stump die. They're just little tufts of grass. And I inked around them with some Distress ink and Mowed Lawn. And I'm going to add them sort of to add a little bit of, something in front of the edge of that farmhouse. And I'm just going to overlap those 2 just for some interest. And that's from Floral Graph paper from Doodlebug. Oops. And isn't that cute? Okay, so next I'm going to stamp some sentiments. I'm using the brand new stamp set Hey Friends, along with the matching outline dies. I'm going to stamp it onto Papertrey Ink Craft cardstock with First Find Claire Nocturne ink using my Misty. It's kind of my thing, right? I have to say that my favorite ink for sentiments is VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. You get a really sharp, dark, crisp image, which I like. It takes a little bit for it to dry, so be careful. Now, at first I thought I was going to stamp it on the inside of the card, but then I decided, no, I want to overlap that sentiment a bit. So I'm going to stamp it again onto some Papertrey Ink Craft cardstock using that same VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. So wishing you a farm-tastic birthday. Kind of fun, right? And I'm going to use my little outline dies as well. So it says, hello from the funny farm, and on the inside it'll say, wishing you a farm-tastic birthday. So I'm using my outline dies, and I always stick them down with a little bit of Easy C tape just to make sure it doesn't move after all that work. And there we go. I cut them out with my Anna Griffin Mini Empress. I keep this on my desk. Okay, so I'm going to add my sentiment to the inside with some Bearly Art glue, which is super cute, right? There, I'm going to overlap it a little bit. And isn't that cute? I do weight it down with an acrylic block. Now, for the front of my card, I'm going to be using this Hello from the Funny Farm. I used the outline die to cut out some more Papertrey Ink Craft cardstock, and I'm just going to layer it up. So I'm going to give it like 2 layers, and then I'm going to use these other ones just to build up. Oop, I hit my camera. Sorry, guys. Just to build up the right-hand side of the sentiment, so it'll stay flat when it runs off the barn and over everything else, because there's quite a few layers on this card right now, due to the barn and the windmill. So I'm just going to glue this down a few times just so I can, elevate that one side. And that way I didn't have to use, I don't think I used dimensionals on this one as a result. On the sentiment at least. So I'm just lining up these little dies here. There we are, and then I will get this stuck down in place using my reverse tweezers, and isn't that cute? So hello from the funny farm. I just think it looked adorable. I do weight it down. So there we are. I just think it's super sweet. I'm going to pull out some mini hearts. These are from Doodlebug. I don't know the name of them. But I'm going to add a few little hearts just to pop with the red, right? A couple more little hearts. I just think this looked super cute. I gotta move it out of the way. This is what I do when I'm putting my little hearts on. Kind of wanna make sure things are straight. Oops. And there you have, oh, I was gonna say there you have it, almost. There it is. Fun stuff, right? So thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to hop on over to the Jada Blossom blog, be inspired by the team, the Jada Blossom store, to get your hands on these amazing products. And thanks as always for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. Make sure to come back tomorrow. Bye, everybody.